welcome to Chatbox with Sam. Today's guest will be actor Craig Bierko. I've got some really great questions for him, and he's really excited to share some stories and memories with you. I hope you enjoy the show. So what inspired you into this career?
It was the beginning of a very disconcerting period, because I really had never felt entirely lost before, but I was completely lost. And there wasn't really any way that, I wasn't in trouble. It wasn't like, anybody could help me. I just didn't know which direction I was heading. And there I was, to paraphrase Carrie Fisher, who just said the insides matched the outsides, which was one of her first lines in Postcards from the Edge, where she shows up, her character is an actress, and shows up like in Beirut. And she looks at Beirut and goes, finally, the outsides match the insides. And I was driving through the desert thinking, God, I feel like I'm driving through a desert. And I was driving through a desert to go to Loma Linda. And a couple hours later, I leave Loma Linda. I wasn't prepared for anything that I saw, which ranged from the horrific to the heroic. Horrible to see a child the size of, a Danish with tape all over it. And I didn't even recognize it as a human being. I thought it was a heart or a lung. It was a baby. It was purple. And these amazing beings were holding this this injury, this wound, and they were going to walk it to the other side. They were going to walk which other way they had to go, whether it was they were going to try as hard as they could to keep this baby alive, but they would be there. And I just thought, these people are actually in the trenches between life and death, and they're doing this for other people. And I don't care how much you're getting paid or what little prizes you get for doing that's a truly heroic life. And I just kept meeting people throughout that day that were endlessly inspiring. I've told the story a bunch of times, but I met Leonard Bailey, Dr. Leonard Bailey, who he was the first guy who invented the he was the pioneer of the infant heart transplant. So the boy and the baby with the baboon heart, and that whole Paul Simon song, that's him. That whole reference is him. And I met him, and he gave me something to hold, and it was like a little rectangle like that big, and it was pulsing, and he stepped out of the way, and it was a wire going to an infant's heart. And he said, you're holding the prototype for something we're working on. It's which is an artificial heart for an infant. And I was speechless. I was literally holding this baby's heart, and I could feel the heartbeat. And then he said, you'll excuse me, I have to go. And Joan, who was the person who would become a friend of mine, who was helping me out, I just met that day, said he's flying to Baltimore. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He's flying to Baltimore to see, because there's a child who needs heart surgery. And if the child doesn't make it, he's going to bring the heart back here for that child. And I just thought, my God. I didn't think about myself all day. That was the most incredible thing. I couldn't think about any of the stuff that I was going through. Oh, I'm in a desert. I just thought, this is amazing. These people are amazing. I just burst into tears when I got into my car. And I just thought, I have to be, it was perfectly timed. Had I gone there 3 years earlier, I don't know if it would have had an effect on me. But I don't know if it would have had quite the punch, because I really did feel lost. And then all of a sudden I thought, wow, nature abhors a vacuum. So I had a lot of empty space. I just thought, I don't know what I'm doing. And it just went, here's some stuff to think about. You're alive. You're not the size of a Danish. You don't have a child who's the size of a Danish. It's because you also see all the parents who were there with their children. And I met a bunch of the children who were waiting for hearts. And I walked through the cancer ward, and I walked through, I just heard so many amazing stories. By the time I left there, I felt as if I just was looking at everything wrong. And I just, or not that I was looking at it wrong, but that I was at a definite, at one of those pivot points that you can just feel in life. First, it made sense age-wise. This was the moment before midlife for a man is very significant. There's sort of a hitch step before midlife, which is, it kind of indicates what's coming, that there's big change coming. And it can be a completely internal change. That's usually the stuff that resonates. And it was I don't know if it was a change, but it was almost like the concrete was setting in my personality and in the things that I valued. And then I had, and they're not even worth going into, but just life experiences in my career and out of my career that forced me to choose between who I could become or who I actually am. And that experience really set me straight on my general outlook, which is very positive, always looking for the best in people, probably to the point where I've allowed myself to be exploited, not in a show business way, but in in terms of the way you can be exploited with just one person. You can take advantage of, or just not being realistic, something like that. I was forced to take a good hard look at myself under like fluorescent lights. It's like somebody turned the real lights on, and you look at your scars and you look at what actually is holding together nicely, and the good points and the bad points of your life, and you see who you are. And then it's hard to explain, but from that, I was leaving that hospital, and before that hospital and after that hospital, there were that was a pivot point for me. It cut my life in two, really. And everything that came before it served what was coming up.
Yeah, so I think what happens in life when we're faced with our worst, we can become our best. Do you agree with that?
Yes, maybe not in the moment.
No.
It doesn't feel like that, but that's probably the whole idea. If you knew how things were going to work out, you wouldn't have to experience fear. You wouldn't have to have doubts and have to overcome them. And it creates moments that are memorable, and that, you can look back and say that was a pivot point. And I think the worth of it is you get yourself focused, and then I think, and I keep going back to that time as a pivot point, because I think what it delineates is the reason my life felt so alien to me was because it was all focused on myself, and that was my corporation. I mean, that's my office building. So there's no shame in that, but I was hungry for something else. I was doing fairly well in career and all that stuff. I was generally happy, but there was a piece missing, and I think some of it was what happens to you later in life was you either develop an instinct for other people and realize the worth of sharing what you've learned in the first half of your life, and hopefully you've learned from it, not just what you've been shown, but I kind of thought, I came out of that whole period feeling very certain that the first half of your life is instruction. You're sort of stepping in every pothole. You're going through what everybody goes through. And then the second half of your life, you still step in potholes, and you're still changing, you're still evolving, but hopefully you've been through enough things to realize, every loss has shape. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and every success has shape too. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that was when I began to develop a taste for, oh, instead of happiness, what about peace of mind? Because I've had peace of mind and then been unhappy and I haven't been sad. Like I didn't get, that seemed to me like, I thought, oh, peace of mind where you actually like yourself and have respect for the things that you're doing is like grown-up happiness. It's like, that's what it is. It's like happiness for grown-ups. Because happiness doesn't make, it's too simple a protein to sustain itself. It's, it's a cookie, a piece of cake, a good movie or something like that. But sense of tranquility and peace. I mean, it really was strange to realize, oh, I'm not particularly happy right now, but I'm at peace. So I'm not stressed. And this feels like the place I want to be. Like now, show me the things that I need to do to sustain this. And also that's the power reserved for, I have enough energy where I can dedicate part of my day to helping somebody else, even if it's just, being conscious enough on the street to say something nice to somebody or return a smile or something like that, but engage the world.
Yeah. That
might have been what you were saying when you asked about Loma Linda, my demeanor on Twitter. That was all happening around that time.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you shared that though, because I think as we get older, I've noticed there is a difference between happier and peace, and peace of mind. And I think as we get older, I found I'm happier, much more happier now than I was when I was younger. I don't know if most people feel that way. And it is peace of mind. I think there's more of a balance when we're older because we've been through more stuff and we're more tolerant of not only ourselves but other people. And the way we treat people is a lot different too, because we're not so self-absorbed as when we're younger. We're more absorbed in ourselves. And as we get older, we focus more on other people because we have more people in our lives, or something changes, or we don't go through this life without receiving happiness, heartache of some kind.
No, you're gonna get the full Fiesta plate.
You are.
And then also going to the hospital was a real reminder of what genuine loss is.
Right.
Real loss. There was one story that they told me about a new nurse had come in to this when I was going through this cancer ward, and there was a baby who was born with something inoperable. The baby wasn't going to make it. Oh. And which was heartbreaking, but something, you put their heads on for a moment and you realize, oh, they have a kind of professional distance from this. You have to. I mean, I have a close friend of mine growing up became a pediatrician, and there was just a part of him, he said, it has to become cold because you want to save this child's life. You can't do that and worry about every move. You've got to just, stick to the flight book and remove yourself from the situation. That's what I was noticing with some of but they had done that without losing a sense of their humanity. They weren't, that wasn't a shot at doctors. I think that's just something that they have to do, or in any profession, you get a professional distance and it doesn't seem so remarkable anymore. I mean, I see that if somebody comes and visits on the set or something like that, they're like, oh my God, how do you, and you realize, oh, I'm getting used to something that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
But it's just the environment I'm used to. It's interesting to see it through new eyes. But this woman was walking me through the cancer ward, and she said that there was a new nurse who was just starting her shift, and it was a night shift. And she saw a nurse filling out a form and holding an infant while she was she goes, oh, let me take the child. Why don't you put the child on the bed and down while you're, and she goes, let me tell you about this baby. This baby isn't going to be here for too long. We've decided that she's an angel and that her feet are never going to touch the ground when she's here. And she didn't. She never touched the ground. The nurses kept handing her off. She would sleep in her bed. And then when she was up, the nurses would carry her, but they'd never let her feet touch the ground. Oh. And there were stories like that just, there are no words, but I mean, I just knew I had to be involved somehow. I just thought this was I had the sense of like when you're very young and you're like, I want to do something that's going to change the world. I want to save the world. And then you're just like looking for the right exit. Where's change the world? That's too small. That's too small.
I know,
that's too small.
right?
And you just end up driving, right? And then you realize, oh, the only way you can hope to change the world is to set an example, which feels very anonymous and small. But the key to everything is anonymity, accepting anonymity, which is the direct, exact opposite of what I'd been doing with my entire life. And so it was really quite a internal shift. It wasn't external. As a matter of fact, the less anybody on the outside noticed it, the more successful I felt I was being, because the things that were driving me in my business just were not the same anymore. If they were even there, they weren't even instincts. They were just a sense of like, this is what I do for a living, you know? And I enjoy performing. I'm used to getting up in front of people and doing that, but I didn't need it anymore. And I didn't need it to, it had become something like where you realize, oh, in a relationship, this is something you need to get past, whatever projection a person has on you, or a friendship, you know? And the same with me. If I was meeting somebody and I had a projection on them, you know, you have to get rid of this distorted idea you have of them that's really built by committee, because it has nothing to do with this person as a human being.
Right.
And I think despite, and it wasn't a conscious attempt, but I think a lot of people end up being actors because they want to preserve a part of their childhood or part of their creative spirit, which I think everybody has a right to. And it's a shame that it gets neglected later in life. It's not valued as much.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, bringing in different intensities of heat to different parts of that flame, to keep that flame going, and realizing I don't have any fuel in this area. I'm not driven anymore to just get attention or get a girl or something like that. This is more about what is this saying? What is this contributing to the world? I'm not really precious about that, you know, but more in the choices I was making in my life. That experience was very instructive, and it still teaches me, because I'm far from perfect, you know, the instinct towards charity is an instinct, but it isn't charity. The instinct is not charity. The instinct to be nice being nice is not charity. And being, you know, these are all, you know, unless we are what we do. So unless I'm taking action, and I've drifted in and out of it for, you know, that period of time. And if anything, I'd like to be more consistent. You know, it really was, you pick your little corner of the world that you want to affect, and then you just drill into that. And I think it has a worldwide effect. I think that shimmers all over the world, because I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to, you know, and whatever happens career-wise, and in a way, it's none of my business. I mean, I'm fairly driven, but I'm not the most competitive person in the world. And that stuff, and awards and stuff like that, it just doesn't mean anything to me. And so I had to find out what had meaning somewhere else. And then I got a little scared that it didn't jive with show business.
I think we're all familiar, but uniquely different. And what I want to do in my interviews is show that familiarity and accepting people's differences. And it doesn't matter what background you come from or who you are. We all do, we are subject to the same sort of trial and errors in life, you know, and what changes us and how we become deeper people. I think some people go through life and they never have that change. They remain the same. And
most people,
yeah,
in my experiences, most people, or the changes that I've seen people go through are the people who to me are kind of heroic. Certainly public figures of people who you like Michael J. Fox, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
I think James Taylor. I know a story about James Taylor. People who use their their fame as a, it's really, it's like a backstage access card to like the big game, like the real game. Mm-hmm. And I think, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but I believe that Muhammad Ali spoke to Michael J. Fox after they've both been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And said, this is the real fight. This is why we have what we have. This is why we have all that attention, because we can really change something now. Mm. We can really change something. And I didn't know Michael before I worked with him, which was a few years after his diagnosis. So it had pretty much set in, and he had become an advocate by the time he and I worked together. He was producing something, but I got to know him enough that I just thought, I'm going to follow his lead charity-wise. And I remembered I even called up and said, I'd like to do something for your charity. He went, great. Well, what are you going to do? Like, I didn't realize it, but there's a whole different language, I think.
Yes.
With charities, I was like, okay, I'm knocking on the door. That's not enough. And there's no door, actually. That's the whole idea. Don't wait for somebody to answer the door. Walk right in and see where you can be of service and help. That's what you do. It's active. You are what you do. You're not waiting outside is not charity. Yeah. And telling people that you're doing charity, it's not charity. It's not the same thing. It's the actual work is anonymous in nature, which is the direct opposite of what we're brought up to be, which is not anonymous. Yeah. It's actually a negative indicator in my business. You're probably not doing well, if you're too anonymous. Mm-hmm. But in something like this, to keep your head down and to keep working. And I honestly felt like, that first time when I had that conversation with him, I was saying I'd like to do something. And he was sort of like, what would you like to do? And I guess the correct answer was, then I guess you'll call me next week and say, I want to do something. What can I do? Or whatever. But I'm not going to call, I would imagine by that point, he'd had his share of people who said, I want to do something. And then they kind of flake. Yes. People and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure that was who I was going to be when I started it with Loma Lindo. So I just thought that it's a self-propelled thing. You'll never want to get into cold water. There will never come a moment if you stand by the edge and go, I want to jump in maybe in 10 minutes. I don't want to now. You got to just jump in and start. And it's going to be terrible. And you'll scream and yell, but then eventually you get used to it. Yeah. And then you'll get out and you won't want to jump in again. Like it's going to go on for the rest of your life. You don't just all of a sudden turn into Superman. I mean, it's a struggle for me at times. And then there'll be times where I realize, I haven't done anything in a while. I haven't done it. And that's just my inside calling out saying you
got to do something.
Yeah, you're drifting. You're changing back into, it's lazy. It's not even that it's bad to be lazy. It's just, if that's, but an actual change, if it's not something like, we all have to eat, we all have to breathe, we have to drink water, but it does feed a basic human need, which is for love. And it was a big lesson about, you go out and you create love. You don't ask anybody for it because you can't get it from somebody. You have to go and create it. You have to generate it. And it feels like you're generating it out of nothing, which is very much what I felt like.
Really? I
didn't have the perspective of knowing what was going to happen in a couple of years or what wasn't going to happen in a couple of years. Same place now where you're just like, well, on top of COVID, I want to go and just start being Mr. Charity Guy and handing out palms. What am I going to do? Hand out palms, kick over markets? I don't have the energy. And it's not that. It's one day, just one day at a time. And it's consciously taking action and defining who you are by your action.
Well, I did notice that you tweeted recently regarding Loma Lindo, and then Gino as well did. And I was thinking, was you if you wanted, obviously you have to step away and then go back to it. Would you ever do like a telethon thing, like a online telethon thing, and to raise money for the? I think I tweeted
first
you.
thing when I first joined Twitter, I didn't know what the hell it was.
Me neither.
And I had the greatest teacher in the world. I'd just done a movie with Alyssa Milano, who's like a weird Twitter genius.
Oh, she's
like a genius. So she said, "Oh, you should try this thing." And I went, "It just looks like a horrible human drain. Like, I don't want that. Like, it's just throwing your humanity down a drain." And she went, "Well, just try it." So she sort of introduced me to Twitter. Said, he's a funny guy. You should follow him." And I just watched my Twitter thing blow up. Like, I watched the numbers. She was my first, and she just, because she recommended me. And then from then on, I really just had a gasp. And the first thing and it was around that time that I made that drive to go out to Loma Linda. And that was my first instinct, was I'll do a telethon, because Twitter can be whatever you want it to be. You can, people are like, "Well, you're just sort of texting." And I went, "No, you can tell people you're anywhere."
Yeah. So
I just told people I was doing a telethon. Mm-hmm. I'm doing it in my underwear on my couch. I'm doing a telethon. That's what I told them. And I called every famous friend I had. I said, "Just send me a 1-minute videotape of yourself, and just say this," because at that point they had a dial-in number for, you could give $10 from your phone bill, which they don't do anymore. But which was much easier for people to give that way, because you don't feel it. You could just say that'd be your good deed for the day, and then it would just appear on your phone bill. And it felt like a telethon. I did it for like 48 hours. And then at the end, I just made myself look really tired, like I'd been up for 2 days, which had happened. And then I made like the last plea for money, like Jerry Lewis did, and made some money, and it made a difference.
Yes, it does.
And I just thought, I don't remember how much it was, but there was nothing there when I started. And I actually have spoken to a bunch of people since then. I thought, that was the most fun I've ever had. And that's the thing I told myself when I left Loma Linda, was it's too late for med school, which the last thing the world needs is me as a doctor, but it's too late for med school. But I have a lot of famous friends that I can pimp out.
Right.
I'll pimp every one of them, because I never ask for favors. Never, ever, ever ask for favors. Save all your favors in show business. You might need a real big one day. And I thought, but this I have no problem with. This I have no problem, because I'm asking complete strangers for money, so I can go ask my friends for a favor.
Right.
And every single one of them showed up for me. And it didn't matter. I mean, Ryan Reynolds, he's the real deal. He's of the people that I've gotten to know. I mean, there are a lot of really, really nice people in the business who you could just guess were really nice people. There's some things that you can't fake, but he is talented enough to fake it, and he's not faking it. And you can see, because if you look at his life, he's left a real imprint, and he's used what it is that he's been given to make a difference in people's lives. When he does something like he shows up and goes to somebody's prom with them, or just shows up for pictures or something, these are the people who I think are, and that's minor stuff. That's just changing the nature of somebody's day, which is no minor thing, because you make a difference in one person's day and it gets the right kind of press. People read about that and it lifts them. It's all good, and it's all of a piece, but there's some people who are very driven to make the most of what it is, this incredible gift that they've been given. I think he's one of them. I think a lot of it has to do with, all these people had exceptional parents.
Oh.
Or one exceptional parent. So a lot of it comes, and I know that his mother is a really amazing person. They're very close. And so I think some of that is just whoever he is a lot of it came back from his parents, or his mom, certainly. And
I think
don't know where I'm going with this.
But you're right in what you say. I think your childhood does make a difference. But I think as well, as we get older, we whether it's bad or good or what we've ever been through, we can choose who we want to be, and we can choose how we treat people, and that is a choice. And there's great people like Alyssa Milano. I have huge respect for her. She's a great advocate. And Mark Ruffalo, great advocates like yourself for making a difference. And that's the great thing about being a public figure. Like if I wanted to go out there and try and promote something, not many people are going to notice. But when a public figure goes out to try and make a difference, bring in awareness, bring in attention, which is awareness, and that's half the battle, getting things noticed. And once you get something noticed, that's when a lot of people come in and say, hey, I mean, remember in Egypt when they were all walking, they cut off their communication and they were all walking across the bridge and they managed to get communication. And how many people, even on social media, on Twitter, of all places, everybody was with the Egyptian people when they were having an uproar.
That's right. That's right.
So being Twitter, and I was wary against it as well at first, but there's every human being on there posting, apart from the bots and stuff like that, there's a human being behind every word. There's emotions, and I think it makes a difference. I was thinking of Gino.
Gino a lot.
Yes.
That's the first person that Alyssa recommended.
Really?
When she knew that I was doing the Loma Linda thing, was she follow this guy Gino. He knows what he's doing.
Yes, I followed him.
And he's a big heart.
Oh.
And it's and he's interesting. I haven't. Do people know who Gino is? You should probably give some sort of explanation, because I'm not even entirely. I know that he's a great advocate.
Yes.
And back in the day, when it was, just seems like a different computer reality. Like I went to his web page and there was like a whole that's how you would figure somebody out. You go to their web page and you go, oh, he's doing this, this, and this, and the different things that he was part of, and that might still be a part of. Like I'm sure he still has that, but now I just go to Twitter and I read a little bit of their page and I figure out I know who somebody is.
He retweeted you, so I noticed last week, and I remember from Loma Linda.
He always does.
Loma Linda before.
He's really good with that. You're very good with that too.
I know.
Yeah.
I know how to retweet. I'm very good at retweeting. Because I want to, when it's something like the Loma Linda, especially, I seen him retweet that, so I just followed him last week. But I noticed he's doing his own charity too on there.
Oh yeah.
So,
yes. No, he's real big. He's got his own thing going on, but he's very big with anybody. She said, if you're ever doing anything, just try and get Gino to retweet it, because that'll give it a boost. And also he's authentic, so people will know that if you're being retweeted, that you're authentic. They don't have to do all you don't have to worry about you and all that kind of stuff. Which comes down to reputation.
Yes.
And in just that small amount of time, he made a big difference. So yeah, I would love to do something with him, and I have a lot of ideas. It's just that I need somebody to facilitate the ideas, because I love the idea of doing a telethon. I love the idea of but I've never done anything other than the version that I did, which was creating the illusion of it. That's what Jimmy Pardo does every year. He has a thing. He does something for. He's a comedian, and he does a. I think it's Smile. Is it Smile Train? Yeah, where there are doctors who go and they, for free, they'll go. I think, I'm not sure, but they go into different areas and they fix cleft palates and stuff like that.
Oh.
And they give the children their smile, literally give them their smile. And he has a big event for that every year. And it's that, I don't know if they used to do 24, I think. But yeah, I'd love to do something like that, or like a Labor Day weekend. Just take Labor Day, set that as doesn't have to be that far in advance, but I love the idea of doing that. Music. Yeah.
You're very musical on your ukulele, and your brother Scott has got the ukulele too. Yeah.
Oh well, Scott's a real musician.
Yes.
I'm the greatest thing is if you've got a brother who's a guitarist, you pick up a chord here and there, and he'll bring the guitar whenever he has the guitar. You go, well, there's a guitar, and you play the guitar a little bit. But I never really learned how to play guitar. I took lessons for a little bit when I was in LA, and then I ended up moving from LA, and then never picked up again. And then I just thought with the start of the pandemic, I'll pick up the ukulele, because I've always wanted to play.
Yeah.
Now I take it a little bit more seriously. Now I try to play for an hour every day. I've gotten better during the pandemic, but I'm still not quite there yet. But But yeah, I do a lot of, for someone who's not particularly musical, you know, because I have to work really hard. Yeah, I do a lot of music.
And you sing on stage.
Yeah.
In musicals.
Yeah.
I was in a musical once.
Yeah.
Joseph and His Technicolor Dreamcoat as a child.
Right.
And I met Andrew Lloyd Webber. How did the music influence you, and what drew you to the stage with music?
That's funny. I grew up, my grandfather was very musical. On my mother's side was very musical, and he would play piano. So he would take my mother to see a Broadway musical, and then they would come home and he would sit down at the piano and he'd play the whole musical. Like, he was very talented. And that wasn't what he did with his life even. That was, I mean, he could just sit down and play the piano. And one of the shows they went to was The Music Man. So we grew up with all of these albums, and I learned all the albums growing up. I would just sing them, and then when my grandparents came over, we put on a little show. But I auditioned for The Music Man. I was like ready to go. I'd been ready since I was 8. After that was finished, it's really funny. I went right into another musical. The same director was directing, Susan Stroman. Went right into another musical, which wasn't very good. And then nothing's matched that experience. I don't expect anything to match that experience. It was a Broadway debut. It was a really special role. And, there's part of me that just feels like I'd love to do that again. And I'm a worker, so I can, like, if I get cast in a musical that I like, I'll work and I'll, but it'll never quite be that again. Yeah. And it was also a different time. And I don't know how much I need to do that, and if you're going to feel something like that, which is a strange thing to say, but it is something that you really have to need to do, because if you're starring, okay, it pays okay. But if you're not, it's not like a free ticket into a life of luxury or anything. It's a lot of hard work, and there are a lot of people doing it. The competition is pretty fierce. And there are times when I just would look around the business like, I don't particularly like some of the people who are doing this that I have to spend my days with, Yeah. But that would really be any business. But there was a part of me that just thought, if the right thing comes along, great. If not, I'd be fine too, because the first experience was the one that for me was like, it was very satisfying. And I have never felt, I mean, other than a panic that kind of sets in, like, I should be doing something. I never thought like, oh, I need to recreate that. And that's what drives a lot of people, is they want that feeling again of like having the lights hit them and just, and that's a completely authentic thing to want to do. It's thrilling. It's exciting. I just happened to have been in a moment in my life where I was standing there. It was getting the exact response that you would dream of getting. And in the midst of it, I was just going, this isn't it. Like, this is what this is. Like, this is as well as this gets. This is great. This is fantastic. And it wasn't diminishing that experience, but this isn't the thing that makes you happy or not happy. This will draw a red circle around it.
Yeah.
Or an X, but it won't, it's not the thing that's going to define what makes you happy at all.
You've already had the finale.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. That was a really, really special experience. And I don't, and it's one in a million that happens. And I just don't know how, like, there's part of me that feels like I've done that. And there are other things that if I'm going to do them every day, I prefer to do. Because there are people who, they can't wait to wake up and start on a new song, or just, get out there and perform a song they've done 1,000 times. And it's just not me. I like, there are things that I like that are just as strange, or feel, that's a strange thing to want to do every day. But I'm familiar with people who want to do it. They're called artists. They want to do it. And I have my own version of that, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
I think New York got hit pretty bad, because
it's hard to imagine. I mean, I haven't been out of New York, and I haven't been out of spent a lot of time in my apartments, and I was actually okay with it. I mean, I didn't mind it. I'm very lucky. I have a really nice place, and I love New York City.
Yeah.
And even when we were going through all of this, it was a damn nice place to be. There were moments that were scary, where you didn't know what was going to happen, and all of a sudden there's nobody on the street.
The COVID, I think you must have come in on the ships or something, because you've got a shipping port there, right? So, and the first strain of COVID that come across here was deathly, and now there's different strains that are out there that are not so deathly, and if you've got an autoimmune disease or suffering from that, then you've got to be more careful. And there's other people that get COVID and just get a headache, so there's so many strains out there, and viruses, you mutate, so they're constantly changing, so it's hard to keep up with.
Everybody's got their story about like when it first came out, but
horrible.
I do. I think I had it. I was doing a play.
Yeah.
With Len Cariou. It was just the two of us on stage, and he had just turned 80, so and he was touching my face in the play. He plays my father. And it was all physical. We had all kinds of proximity, and I remember getting sick. I remember our producer got sick, and then I got sick, and I think my understudy got sick. But I got sick like the second to last week that I was there. I left the play after like 3 months, and then 2 nights after my replacement started, all of Broadway shut down, and he'd rehearsed for like a month because they were both bears, there was a lot to do, but it was so sudden, and still it's without precedent, so it's hard to say how I feel about it, other than like how I feel today, which is today's a good day. And I make sure to, I'm grateful for, to remember what I'm grateful for, and I'm careful. Like, I wasn't about to go, I mean, I don't need to demonstrate, I don't need to just do what seems to be the right, most healthy thing to do. There's not a plot in everything. Like this is really unfortunate, but it's not like it's not unfair, because it didn't just change a few people's lives. It changed everybody's life. So everybody's going according to the same. But and that's caused a lot of trouble. I think there's a lot of miscommunication, because a lot of people think, okay, who's really behind this? And once you start getting into that thinking, there's no way out, because you'll never know.
No.
There are things that
That's right.
We'll never know. So what don't waste time asking like who injected this into the system. It's in the system, and you got to protect yourself and your family. Keep it small. Yeah. Keep it small, and what can I say? Watch what you're spending, take care of yourself. Stuff that you can't control is you really do have to wake up. Some mornings it's harder than others, and just say, I can't control that. I don't have anything to do with that. What I can control is this, this, and this. So I'm going to take care of that. Yeah. That's hard to do.
Do you know what I noticed? People became more courteous. Like in the store, obviously you have to wear masks, and you have to social distance. When you went to the store before, I mean, out of all the tragedy and the horribleness that happened, and it's just devastating worldwide. It wasn't just America or England or France or Germany. It was worldwide. It was most of it. But you go to the store and people are like trying to, just going on the shelf or something like this, and they're jumping in queues and this, that, and the other. Everybody was courteous, apart from everyone running out of toilet paper. Everybody bought toilet paper and there's none on the shelves. That was bizarre. But, people became courteous with each other, and there was distancing, and you'd wait for someone to go in the queue, and you'd wait, and I noticed people were, like my grandparents in the war said, you smiled at each other every day, because you didn't know if this was going to be your last. And that's the difference in when we're faced as human beings, our humanity, with our worst, we become our best. And it's a shame we can't be like that all the time. that it takes such a tragedy for us to turn around and be courteous with each other and be kind. I mean, not everyone. I think there's more kindness and love in the world than there is anything else. But, you know, it's a yin and yang. Life is a yin and yang. But it's definitely changed a lot of people's perspectives on life and how we're treating each other.